pop in, say hi. If you've never come into one of my lives before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside, and I am calling it almost an end of the day. We're going to spend a couple of hours or an hour and a half together. I hope you pop in, say hi. I have amazing people that hang out with me on Sunday nights, and they are just what I need tonight. And yeah, I do appreciate you 100%. Owen, thank you so much for coming in. Oh my goodness. I hope you had an amazing, amazing week. Or at the very least, how about an uneventful week? Right? My dad used to say sometimes when he go get to the bills in the mailbox, right? No news is good news. Right? And I kind of took on that kind of perception in my life, and I avoided my bills like the plague. And especially when I was I was an addict, a VLT addict, video lottery terminal addict. Oh my goodness, I can't believe how much of my life, how much of my time, how much of my marriage, and how much of my money, right? I put into those machines and what it did for me. I suspect that it did something for me or I wouldn't have done it, but I am so grateful that, it was my YouTube channel that I got addicted to something else. I got addicted to feeling, well, I was thinking about it today, that it's how important it is to leave a mark in the world somehow. And when I really can't, and I've thought about it many, many times, but I never looked at it in this perspective, to kind of say, to kind of shout, to kind of make that announcement, I was here. Right? I mattered. My story mattered. My relationships mattered. My YouTube mattered. All those experiences I had in my life, it all mattered. And if my life just ended, right, would I just be somebody from hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years ago that none of us knew? And it's not like I want to be in the limelight or anything. It's just that idea, like I said, to say, hey, I was here, right? My life mattered. If it didn't matter to anybody else, it definitely mattered to me, and I made the best of it. I really did make the best of it. And if I ran to the comfortable abilities, I like that word, saying it. I'm not even sure if it's a real word or not, but I like saying it. If I ran to those comfortable abilities in my life, right, it served me. And I don't necessarily have to know the specifics unless it was meant to serve me in some way. But a lot of information does come across my paths, you guys. A lot of information comes across my paths, and I don't know, you know, if I should just flip the switch already and just see what happens. That's my family's nature, right? That we always like a change of scenery. Maybe that little span of time in between when I met my husband and when my marriage fell apart, and then after that not being able to hold the job, right? And I've had this job for quite a while, but it took mentorship. Took a lot of gumption on my part and the people that I work with, right? Because I'm kind of my own person, and I'm grateful to have that job that allows me to be me, but step inside those boundaries. Today, I think I might have stepped outside of those boundaries a little bit, putting my put in my place. And it gave me rise to contemplate, was I wrong on that? Or was it good intent? Because if I hadn't done anything, right, nothing would have come of that, at least on my side. But I don't know, to see somebody win, maybe I made a wrong call on that. And it kind of threw my day for a loop. And I know you guys know what I'm talking about, because these kind of days, I'm sure, come into your life, right? And I take responsibility, and it makes me feel bad. And if it raises my emotions like that, it means, right, take a look at it, contemplate it. How do you really feel about it? And then take a look at it some more and say, well, right, is that your nature, just to feel bad about it? Or are you taking responsibility, right? Did you make a bad judgment call, right? Right? As much as your feelings were hurt, were somebody else's feelings were hurt. This is what I talk about when I say put yourself in other people's shoes. But sometimes when we're spontaneous, right? Right? Sometimes when we're triggered, right? And each one of us are triggered by something else. You guys know what you're triggered by, right? Right? And I was triggered in a way that I hadn't been triggered in since I was a little kid. And it triggered me, and it made me a little kid for a few moments, for sure. And gave me something to think about while I was working all day. And then get on the bus, come to work, and I feel better getting out the fresh air. And then I go to the grocery store and I have grab my groceries, right? Got one more shift to go, come home, right? My house is tidy because I cleaned it before I went to work today. Made myself a cup of coffee, come in. And I think there's a lesson there. I'll come in later tonight and I'll watch that for myself. Right? But we all have those days, and I don't want to pretend that those days don't happen in my life. And if it so happens when one of those days happens when I'm doing my life, I'm still going to show up. I'm not going to grumble and whine about it, but just let you know if you notice a little bit something different in the energy that I bring into my life, right? I'm pretty good at brushing things off to the side. But also, I've been in that contemplation in my work projects at work, because I had somebody who could watch the till and who was in training, right? Just called me up when he needed me. So I was able to get a lot done at work, and it was exactly what I needed. But at the same time, maybe not so much what I needed, because it allowed me to be in the projects and to be into my mind and into my emotions together, both of them at the same time, because that's when I know that I can really put myself in somebody else's shoes, right? And I can even put myself in my own shoes, because lots of times, while you guys know me, you've known me for a long time, there's a lot of guilt and shame kind of built into me. And so it's my first reaction when I get triggered is, right, I like I said, I went back to being a little kid. So in that moment there is that, oh my goodness, oh, that little bit of panic, and not showing that control and showing that comfortability that I have, because I've been pushed past the edge of my norm, and I'm riding those waves and adapting and conquered to the situation, and trying to resolve at the same time to make sure that all parties are good. Like, right? I would hate to think that any of my customers were truly, right? Maybe it was a day. Maybe it was my day. Oh boy, I was sick for the past 3 days. I was so sick. Last night I took my temperature and I'm going, oh my goodness, I'm going to hit 100, right? I had a little bit of fever. I didn't have COVID, right? And I'm going to say, thank God. It's kind of like my claim to fame now is to not have COVID yet, right? But I was pretty convinced. And if I was as easily caught that cold, it could have easily have been the other one too. So So, I did get my boosters and my flu shot for the season. So it must have been a gooder, but I woke up this morning and I felt a little bit better, right? I slept good last night because I hadn't slept in 3 days, but I slept pretty good last night and I was ready to take on the day. And I always feel good when I've got the little bit of house work and stuff because I know I'm going into my days off normally. Tomorrow I'm working again, right? One more day, right? One more day. So how is everybody else's week or how's everybody else's day been? And it's not like a bee fest too, right? But we all have those days and we all express them differently. And I guess, you guys know me from now every Wednesday. It takes me a few minutes to calm down. We'll see if in 10 minutes I feel much better. But you know what? Just coming in and doing my live and hanging out with you guys. Owen, thank you. Owen was in here first. You did have a nice week. A nice week is good. I like hearing a nice week or something like that. When I hear it's fine, then I think, oh my goodness, right? What went bad? Or somebody saying I don't want to lay my troubles on somebody. But when you say a nice week, you go, oh, okay. It was accomplished. I always ask my cashier all the time when I work with him on Saturdays. So how was your week? Because I only work with him once a week because he's in university, right? And he always lets me know and he go, oh, it was okay. And then I go, uh-oh, what was it? And then he'll tell me and we have a little talk about it. And I go, okay, right? But I love that he's honest, right? That I can, and it's not, oh, it was terrible or anything, but he lets me know it wasn't the bestest of the bestest, right? Yeah. Yeah. I love the people I work with. They work hard, but I worry for them. And because I worry for them so much, I do a lot of the picking up the slack and I am exhausted. That's a big part of what's going on, especially when we're short staffed. But you know, it's not being short staffed because everybody is pretty capable, but it's I don't know, maybe just being all on the same zinc, on the same page, or right, or the designation of the chores that other things are being not done, right? But still having to be accounted for. Yeah. I'm coming down, you guys. Okay. Hannah! Oh my goodness, Hannah. You know what? I have to apologize to you, dear, because you were in my podcast 3 times this week. And sometimes I get such in that conversation when I'm in my lives, and especially when I'm kind of clock watching at the same time. And I don't mean to. I should come in and spend a good hour and have lots of time after my live show to come down from that too, instead of going off to work and being in that same zone, just like when I'm at work, being in this zone, like it's back. That's what happens though when you're working with both. But I usually juggle that pretty good. But Hannah, I missed the ball on that one. You were in my live show a few times last week, and I just wanted to say hi, right? Because I missed you saying hi each time when you came in and said hello to me, and I totally missed the mark on that one. So I wanted you to know at the very least that I knew you were in there, right? That's so amazing. Do what Melvin does. Tell me your good cheer, right? We all have a good cheer, even though we have crappy days or days that don't go well for us. We do like that idea that it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. We have lots of nice things going on, right? It was really nice for me to be able to go into the projects because usually I'm with my customers all day, right? So it was nice to go into cleaning projects and tidying up projects and stuff. But yeah, then just little hiccups. And sometimes, it happens almost every day, but lots of it you could just like spilt milk and just let it go because there's nothing you can do about it, or you just wait for it to roll down the hill just to see where you need to step in so it doesn't go any further because it's going to start to be an issue, right? Right? I don't know. William's here too. Oh my goodness. Andrew. Hello, Andrew. I got your box today, Andrew. There's something I want to send you, but I don't know how to send it to you because it's really long. And I thought maybe this box would be a little bit better than the box I chose for you. Well, the other box I chose was way too big because I got two more other sets of gifts in the same box. So today I got your box. Yeah, it's sitting here on my day off. It might not be Tuesday because my sister's taking me to return my new camp stove. It's she got me the most amazing camp stove, but when I went to check it out, I noticed that the accessory bags was missing, and so I'm just going to, right, my sister's got the receipt. She said we'll go and pick it up, but she got in a silly accident. Yes, it was the sister that just got out of the hospital. I tell ya, everybody I know getting hit a little bit right now, right? So it's good to hear that things are going okay there for you, Owen, right? That's great, and that's what you shoot for. We know that it doesn't always work out that way. Yeah, but my sister, right, planted her face on the car. I don't know why she feels she needs to be out at 40 below zero, right, on the ice and wipe out like that, right, when she gets out of the hospital. But I'm not, right, I'm not going to judge in that. I'm just going to say, oh, my poor sister. So we didn't go last week. I would, right, of course not, go change the stove. And if she's not feeling good this week, we won't do it this week either. And if she can't do it at all, then that's perfectly fine, right? That's perfectly fine, right? Yeah. But yeah, all of them, right? Everybody's kind of worn out and tired, and it has been a lot of excitement going on, with what's going on politically and stuff, right? On both sides of the border. The state's got a new president, and we lost the new premier. Well, he wasn't new, but he was our premier, prime minister. We lost our prime minister, and I don't know who or what is going to be in place of that. But even going to work today, I bumped into somebody I know, and right, we got into a deep conversation with that, and it's hard for me because I don't take sides, and I will actually say, well, this is my opinion, not in a disrespectful way, but in a way that makes it so at very least I'm not agreeing with them, right? And I said, oh, that's interesting. I believe da 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 da, right? But he was super passionate, right? They got right. He got rid of the the prime minister of Canada, and now he says we got to go for the party. So now they're going for the party. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's just a feeding frenzy out in the world, right? And that's why I don't watch the news, because these things, I got into this conversation last week because I didn't have a TV. I don't take in the news, but that's why, right? Is because these conversations and these news headlines, they get to me, and I don't want to be involved in the media that way. It's really tough. You guys know. I'm sure you guys are hooked on the shorts and stuff, and being a creator, a lot of the thought leadership that I take in, they also have the shorts and stuff. And part of being on YouTube, right? Coming off the Instagram the way that I have, call it a break is what I'm doing, is I'm calling it a break from Instagram because I'm looking out for my own well-being. This is why I'm thinking I'm trying to, right, making sure that at the very least, if I'm right, that I hear, that I'm paying attention, that I'm not overstressing myself out, that I'm not putting too much on the plate, then I'm not taking in the wrong information and being influenced, right? On Instagram the way that I am because I don't spend a lot of time on the Instagram like I used to, but right, YouTube's got the shorts now. YouTube has the shorts now too. So I do have to stay careful in that. But again, it's in our choices, isn't it, you guys? Right? We all get to choose what we take in, right? And I suspect that yeah, I watch a lot of stuff. What's the title of the one I'm watching right now? Spotting the differences between co uh, post traumatic stress disorder versus borderline personality disorder, BPD, parent versus CPDST, adult child. Like, that's heavy stuff, you guys. Like, it was even hard to read, and I have pretty good grammar in the reading department, and I had a hard time getting through that, getting through that title, right? And it was so funny, right? When talking and the mood that I was in coming in live today, you guys. I came in and I went right into the lessons, right? It's kind of like confessional, right? I feel bad and that guilt and shame is surfacing. And again, it's in that reflection of myself, and I will, right over my days off, give it some thought, but I'm brushing it off to the side because my day at work is done and I'm leaving that to work, right? That's work. I am done now. But like I said, maybe in that way of that confessional and that guilt and shame, even though I'm not at work anymore, it's still kind of surfacing, right? That I'm using these lessons in borderline personality disorder and right complex post-traumatic stress disorder. It's the same as PTSD. PTSD is when you get it as an adult, right? When you go through traumatic experience as adult. The complex post-traumatic stress disorder are those small bites, those small scary things, those small traumatic things, and they just build and build and build and build and build. And it makes you hyper vigilant. It makes you it does a job. It does, right? It got suggested to me just like a fish hook, and I bit on that, just the topic up my line of interest. It's really interesting because this is just one topic in my interest. You guys know I love the metal detecting, right? I love the bottle detecting. I love um uh oh my goodness, history. We go back like right now. Well, it's been a while, but I have been all the way back into the very beginnings, right? At all the different humans and all the different types, and how the Homo sapiens are the very last ones, and there were so many home different types of Homo sapien or humans, and the Homo sapiens are the last ones, right? Unless Sasquatch turns out to be Neanderthal. That would be pretty funny, wouldn't it? Right? That would make the Sasquatch people, well, the Sasquatch people are already believers, but the Sasquatch unbelievers, right? They found a Sasquatch. That would be some vindication, right? For all the people who are convinced out there that they're telling the truth, that Sasquatch does exist, right? And it could be. They found villages in Central South Cent. This is kind of shameful. At work, we have a new girl she started, and she's from Central America. And I go, oh, I would just love to go to some of those provinces or states down in South America where you can go up in the mountains and it's not too hot. I don't like the heat. I like it more on the cooler side because you can always put jackets and warm stuff on, right? So she goes, oh my goodness, Cindy, Central America. I'll go, Central America? Isn't Central America in South America? I just knew Canada, the United States, and South America. I thought Central America and South America were like Nunavut in Canada. It's still all part of Canada, right? But it was just kind of separated by different names that way. Or like even North America, right? Canada and the United States. I didn't recognize. Well, maybe that's where I made the mistake in that. Yeah, so in any case, Central America, I had no idea. And geography was never my big forte. It wasn't my interest in school, except if it was somewheres that I thought was beautiful that I wanted to visit, right? But I think for most of my childhood and my teen years, the only place that I could ever dream about going to was Scotland. I had a great big map of Scotland on my bedroom wall, right? Yeah, wanted to go to Scotland. I actually contemplated this year when I was making my goals that instead of going to Ontario, because I thought I was going to go to Ontario, that instead of going to Ontario this year, that maybe I would go to Scotland, seeing it was a lifelong dream, right? And give that to those other parts of me and Cindy, who would both, I believe, would absolutely go cuckoo. I would walk along uh, the the lock for sure. I would go sit on a rock and I would see if I could find a place that isn't all touristy and stuff. Find myself a nice spot on a rock and go sing to Loch Ness Monster and see if he comes to the surface, right? Yeah. If you were to go for a trip to another country, you guys, what country would you like to go to? I'm not sure if Scotland, where I'm at right now in my life, if Scotland would be my first choice. I'm thinking probably I'd like to go to Rome, Greece, Turkey, Spain, Portugal before I went to Scotland. But because Scotland was a dream, I know I would enjoy it. I know it would be hiking and trekking anyway, of course, right? And Scotland has what do you call a pilgrimage where you go walk and it's a 3-day pilgrimage. Well, 3 to 7 days depending on how long you want to take, and you pass lots of people, right? They have they call it Midland Highlands, or yeah, the Midland Highlands or something like that. And it's like a 7-day trip if you want to make it a 7-day trip, but you could do it in 3 days too. And it's a sabbatical. So that was the one that I was thinking of going on. Okay, well, I'll be getting yours out. Well, like I said, I'll pack yours up this weekend. Fill up a Merry Christmas card, Happy New Year card for you, and off it will go right away. I have 3 of them to do this year. It just I let it slip one day, so Andrew knew he was getting one, so it's not a big secret. But I do have a couple of more. If you don't know, I'm Cindy. I'm from Winnipeg, Canada, and Manitoba, Canada. And we were in the midst of a big postal strike over the Christmas and New Year holidays. Or at least the Christmas holidays, and then they were forced back. wanted to make sure everything's okay, everything's back to normal for now, and that our parcels don't get stuck in transit, which is still possible, you guys. They haven't resolved the issue. Not that I know of. That news has not come across my path. And you guys could say, see, there's a good example, Cindy, not to watch the news. But I haven't heard anything, and I would think I would have probably heard about it. I heard it was a little bit of a standstill, that they got told to back off and go back to work, and that it would be settled in another means. When and how, I don't know. That hasn't come across my path yet. But let me have a sip of my coffee. It's my Nassau cup, you guys. It's for the United States Space Agency. I don't sure if it's Nassau, but I'm sure that it's some one of those ones. The writing is almost down. You can't see it. It says Space and Rocket Center. Maybe that's a museum. I'm not quite sure. The guys from the States would know better, right? I found this mug. It's my second favorite mug. I use it almost every day. It's the perfect size for a cup of coffee, and when I'm trying to cut down coffee, and I have been, I'm not finishing the coffee. So I'm probably taking in about one and a half, maybe one and a half if you count one that I buy at the coffee shop when I go to work, right? Maybe three of them, I have to say, to be honest, right now, because I have some, and even though I don't sip it all, the morning coffee, I usually pretty finish the whole thing, right? Because it's kind of like breakfast. Okay, come back into the comments. Andrew says, no rush, Cindy. I got so far behind this past year. So much happening at once, but things are slowing down a little. Right? Right. I like that pace too. Especially when you want to be the master of your own life. And you seem to be that person to me, even though we all, right? Whether we have a job, whether we work for the man, whether we're retired or pensioned off, or we work for ourselves, right? It's always wonderful, I think, to be the master of your own life. My dad worked hard, and he was the king of his castle, right? My dad set all the rules, everything that happened in the household. He knew exactly what was going on in his family, and I suspect a lot of that dictation that was dictated to me was just dictated to my mother, right? And and it serves why I'm watching these videos on borderlines, right? A lot of the symptoms of borderlines are the same symptoms as narcissists, right? When it comes to that aggressiveness, to the violence, to the abuse, right? So I want to make sure, right, that I didn't, right? I don't like to label, but I am an experiencer, and I would like to know how I experienced it, because, right, if my mother was a borderline, then I have some borderline traits. And if my mother was a narcissist, then I rule my own life. I don't control anybody else. I control my own life, right? And that's what I was, right? Andrew seems to me like wants to be the master of his own life, but sometimes we find ourselves in those situations with our jobs and our responsibilities where we find we have to overexert ourselves, put a little bit more into them what we would prefer, right? That we probably like a little bit more couch and remote control or headline news. But see, lots of that stuff outside where you could be using that time and that energy and that effort that you put into it. It could be something that's not as good as where you're at now, right? That paycheck is good, isn't it? keeps groceries on the table, gets milk on the kids' cereal, it gets them school supplies if they still do school supplies. Lots of the parents in my community at work anyway, they just pay the school and the school takes care of all the school supplies and stuff, which I think is a great idea. I think it would be more cost effective, and also at the same time it takes away from the jealousy, the pettiness, and the resentment that kids can grow into. Right, when you see the other kids, it's like those bento boxes in Japan. I feel so sorry for the mothers who work all day and then come home and take care of their children, spend time with the kids, wash them, put them to bed, and then they can't even sit down to watch a little bit of TV or spend time with their husband because now they got to run off to the kitchen and make fancy sushi dishes and stuff for their child's little containerized bento boxes. And these mothers are competing with each other by their children, by how beautiful one child's meal box is compared to the next child's meal box. And we got to understand everybody has different. My mother sent us to school with butter sandwiches with sugar. And I remember I remember the butter sandwiches. I remember the sugar. I think it was, yeah, we called them sugar sandwiches. Right? Now as an adult, there's two ingredients. If you technically look at it, they were butter sugar sandwiches. And then she had the other mustard sandwiches, which technically were butter mustard pepper sandwiches. Right, but it's not fair. It's not fair to the mothers, right? Because after a while, and you that becomes your life, that becomes the norm, and then you don't even think that you're overexerting yourself or you're stressing yourself out about some little sushi cake that might not be as nice or as pretty as the next kid, and your kid's going to come home all traumatized because somebody made fun of their lunch because they couldn't afford it or they didn't have the time to spend a lot of time in creativity. Maybe they're not even creative, right? Oh my goodness. My sister is Tracy. She's so smart, but all her smartness comes from books. Books. Yeah, she's book smart, my sister Tracy, right? And because she's so independent and alpha herself, right? That she created her own life. She created a magnificent life for herself, right? But then again, right? Those poopy things come into our lives and we have to ride those waves. Who are we to think that every day could be a cloud of pink and blue cotton candy? It can't be. And sometimes we gotta accept that, right? Sometimes we just do. And that's the discernment that, right, to have the smarts to think like that instead of making those rash decisions to say take this, turn up your right, right. And I know I was that sensitive. Oh my goodness. And I am. I am that sensitive, but it's in my own effort. It's that participation in my own existence that I'm not that person, right? It's in the lessons and it's in my beliefs now and it's in my makeup and right? Right? But that's the choices, right? Okay. Let me come down here. I know I'm missing something here. Yeah, so Hannah, I just wanted you to know that I didn't want you to think that I was ignoring you in the conversations because I saw you there, dear, and I so appreciate that you popped in and said hello to me. But I hit that live button as fast as I do, I hit that end button fast too, and I should make a point of taking a look over to the side because I have no idea, right? Who's there? And I just wanted you to know that I appreciated it, right? I feel 100 times better. Oh my goodness. But yeah, right. Make sure everything is safe. I was wondering, right? Because while seeing that you're here, I can show you. This is interesting. Andrew, I can show you because I was going to put this in your box, but because you're thinning out your books, they're books. I have 3 little books, just 3 little books, little antique books. And if I showed them to you, if there was one that caught your fancy, because I know other people too who would appreciate the books if you didn't want them. But let me know because I would much rather that I put them in your box and send them off to you if you would appreciate them. But because I know you're thinning out your collection, that I wasn't going to put them in the box. But I'm going to show you them to you right now. Why? Because I can. Right? Because I can. So here are the 3 books that I have right here. Andrew, I was going to throw them in your book, but let me know. Oh, this one was so good. If you never read it before, Andrew, I know it's got, I'll cover it with my hand because I know there's the German, the German signal, the 4 cross, right, is on the front of the boat. It's a German book, but it's written in English, and it was so good. It's all right about how a couple of kids grow up and how one grows one way and how people are sneaky and other people are just so honest and kind and how some people are willing to work for what. Oh, it was such a good story. Have you seen it, Andrew? Have you read this book? Herbert Cotter's Legacy, it's called. This book was printed, well, it had to have been printed in the early 19th century, I'm thinking. Oh, I don't think it has a date in it. No, it doesn't have a date into it. It just goes right into the chapters. You'll love this. I read it when I bought this and I sat here, and it's not a big. You can see the writing isn't super big. I think it's for young teenagers to help build character or morals or standards or something. It was a really, really, oh, sorry, I meant to cover the sign. It was a really, really good book. I have to say, I really enjoyed it and I really felt this book. Okay, so I'm going to send that to you if it's okay. Is that okay with you, Andrew? Right? And then maybe if you don't want it, you can just put it in that little library you walk by every once in a while and pass it on, and maybe some other little teenager or something will get their hands on it. Okay, so this next book was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And it's an old edition here. The date on it, I think the date might be in this book here. No, it doesn't have the date, but you can tell that it's Art Nouveau. So that would probably be in the late 20s, early 30s, don't you think? And this was a movie, wasn't it? 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Was that not a movie, Andrew? Wow, are you ever smart? Okay, so are you taking this one or am I passing it along? Let me know, Andrew. Right? I'll show you the binders so you can make sure. It's just a little book. It's not very long. It looks like 10 inches. It was. I remember. I enjoyed that movie. Let me know if you want that one, Andrew. And then the third book that I have here is another little book. And this one, let me get my eyeglass here. Merson's Essays, first series. Am I reading that right? Oh, Emerson's. Emerson's Essays, first series. That is a little string, or I don't know what that is. No pictures. Some picture of some old guy. Maybe that's Emerson. I don't know. Oh yeah, it is. It says it's him. 1905. So what about the third one then, Andrew? Okay, so I'll pass that on. I'll give that one to Joan. Joan will like that one. And then this one here, Emerson's Essays, first series. What about the third one? It's got a little gold binding on the side. 1905. I know of Emerson, one of the transcendentalist authors of the 19th century. Hold on to that one also. Wow, you're so smart, Andrew. Okay, I want you to read. Oh, let me know, Andrew, when you read this. Let me know what you thought about it. I thought I would have loved to have had a conversation with somebody about this book because I thought it was so well done. Right? I really did think it was really, really well done. Perfect. Okay, so that goes in that box. On my days off, we'll get that box all packed up and off to the post office. And like I said, I'll send you a message when it's off, right? And maybe I'll keep an eye on the post office, and I'll let you know if the post office goes on strike again. If it goes on strike, I'm sure it only takes a couple of days to get to the border, right? Usually the hold at the border is usually the hold up when it comes to sending mail to the States. Okay. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad I thought of that. Right? It was a really interesting book. That's super duper. And then I think I'll give both of these to Joan. She comes in once in a while, but she never finds these little books because they go as soon as they come into the store because they only have a few dollars on them. So when they come into the store, they leave the store really, really fast, right? So when she comes in, she never gets to spot them. And because I bought these, because these belong to me, right? I can give them to whoever I want. So she'll come in and I'll make sure that she gets those. Oh, yeah, Andrew, the phone numbers too. I'll go back. Yeah, I wrote it down in my address book because you sent me your phone number. So yeah, my post office here in Canada, um, they require phone numbers. So if I send any parcels out, I'm going to need. But I'll let you know when I'm ready to take it to the post office. I'll just let you know there's a parcel coming. Then you can just send me your phone number if I don't have your phone number on file, right? Because here in Canada, we have to give our phone numbers now. There are new laws when it comes to Canada Post because there is so much entrepreneurship going on online that, right, it's really, really hard to track and make people pay their fair share in taxes and stuff because money is just changing hands electronically right and left, right? Oh, thank you, Andrew. I thought you sent me yours already. Maybe it was Owen's that I got. I appreciate that, Andrew. Me and Andrew have been friends for a lot of years. He may live in another country. We may live in different countries, but yeah, we have become good friends, right? Be careful when you're online. If people ask you for your phone numbers and your emails and stuff. It's so easy to be sucked in, especially when you're a highly sensitive. It's so easy to be sucked in and scammed. And there's nothing worse than having to harden up, right? Because when you're scammed, it hits your trust. It chips away at your trust, right? And there's nothing worse than having trust betrayed. Well, there's nothing worse than having betrayal, period, right? I'm very kind of particular about the betrayal part. I'm not usually one after betrayal that I can go back to the way it was, though I almost always try. I can't help it. It's just my nature. It's just my heart. But for the most part, it doesn't, right? Because once that betrayal is there, it is there. But what was I going to say? To be careful about your information, right? Make sure you trust the people that you're sending your emails to, your phone numbers to, right? And being the hearts that we are, right? Right? We got a lot of great hearts going on this channel, don't we? So we do have to take care of ourselves that way. Well, here's a good example. I'm just thinking of being scammed. Well, I was pretty young at the time. I think I was about maybe 25 or 26 years old. And I had this job in this convenience store that was also a gas station, right? I worked the night shift. Oh my goodness. I really loved that job. It was close to home, it was only a couple of blocks away. I was staying up all night anyway. I didn't have to do those 7 o'clock in the morning shifts, though right now, right? If I were to start my career again, that would be the first thing I did is to take those early morning shifts and to be done by my day, to be able to go home to your wife or your husband and your kids and have dinner with them and have a little bit of time to play with the kids, a little bit of time to watch some TV and spend time with your wife, and right, to have a little bit of time for yourself. If you're anything like me, you need that too, right? But I worked in this gas station convenience store, and one night this gentleman came in and always have these concessions right along the wall where you have the coffee machines and you have pastries and you have Slurpee machines, and it's a big long counter, cups and all kinds of stuff, right? And he came in the exact same nut time every single one of my shifts. It was like 2:30 in the morning or 3:30 in the morning. You'd come in, and he said he worked at the Sony manufacturing plant, right? And and after about 3 or 4 nights, him coming in at 3 o'clock in the morning, there's nothing going on. And it's nice to have a short conversation with someone. Like, they started talking to me. I think this whole thing took about 2 weeks. And he started talking to me, right? And he smiling. And I think right off the hop, he started doing it, but actually friendly conversation, like we know each other now, right? Only after a few days, he was super friendly, super good at what he did, right? Started talking about his job, and he's on a break, and right, how we worked with this, and I said, oh, you must get some great deals at work. He says, oh yeah, I got beautiful TVs and beautiful stereos, and yeah, it's pretty good. It's a pretty good job, and blah blah blah, right? And this went on for a few days, right? And it was close to a holiday. It might have even been Christmas or something, right? And he says to me, he says, oh yeah, he says, it's Christmas time, and they gave us our menu of presents, employee presents, and he showed me a sheet, and for how many years this is what you're allowed to purchase at this price. And it got me right away, because right off the hop, he says he didn't want any of this stuff. And I'm going, oh my goodness, Sony stereos and top of the line this and top of the line that for $50. And oh my goodness, after 2 weeks, I had saved every penny I had, and maybe penny for my bills and stuff and everything. he got that $200 for me, and I picked a few items. He says, okay, see you tomorrow. Oh, and I was so excited. I bragged to everybody, and everybody right off the hop told me I got scammed, eh? But I had so much faith and trust that he was such a nice man that he was going to come in the next night, and I was going to prove everybody wrong, and they were going to be so jealous, and I wasn't going to let him play my stereo, and no house parties at my place. They can have house parties at their own place with their own stereos, right? I got scammed. Never saw him. And it turned out a few months later, it turned out these kind of scams were kind of happening. And what they do is they come into a town and a city for a couple of weeks. And he's not just hitting up my convenience store. He's hitting up every 7-Eleven and Mac store, whatever is going on, gas station stores all over the city. And in a span of 3 or 4 hours, how many relationships can you build in a couple of weeks? How many people could you scam if you know and you weren't going to get caught, that you were just moving on to the next city anyway? Right? I got done good. I got sucked in good. And something like that will toughen you, right? That will, like I said, bite at your trust so that you don't want to trust people, right? You don't want to, right? You don't want to give anybody a chance because you've been burned one too many times, 10 too many times, thousands and thousands and thousands too many times, because we get sucked in all the time, right? I don't know if you guys have been scammed that way, right? There are lots of scams out there. I get these scams in my feed all the time, in my email, and I'm good. Google's got my account, and they just send it straight to the trash, right? I don't even look at it until I want to go in there just to make sure, right? Because sometimes there's somebody you are waiting to hear from them, and accidentally it'll end up in the scam. So when somebody messages you, oh, can you check your trash mail, right? Or sometimes they'll let you know ahead, right? Sometimes these things end up into the trash bin. So if you don't see it in the email, just check in the trash bin and see it if it's there, right? Now, sure enough, right? So I'm pretty tight that way, but it's easy. It's so easy, and especially if somebody is a couple of times, right? Oh my goodness, a couple of times I thought I had some real big ones following my content. I really did, right? But they were scammers, and they'll use somebody with presence and somebody who has a name, and then they'll just tag on a few letters, or they'll spell it wrong, or they'll add some numbers on the end, right? Or they'll just leave out that word official, right? Yeah, so it's easy to get scammed that way, right? Okay. Okay, I hear you, Cindy. Andrew says, I remember my roommate when I first started taking college classes. He was no friend at all. A terrible experience, but at least I learned from it. And it toughers, right? You learn from it. You learn from it. But it's hard because you don't want to be that toughie. You don't want to say no. You don't want to be on your guard. You don't want to mistrust or untrust somebody, right? Yeah. I give lots of chances, especially if I hear that word sorry. Sorry is so appreciated. Sorry is not a word I ever heard when I was growing up from anybody in my family. My family does not apologize. Nobody in my family apologizes ever, except for me. I'm constant. Sorry, sorry, sorry. Even today, tons. Just sorry, 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 sorry. And that's the person that I am, right? And I hate to say that because I'd like to say that I'm tough and I am not sorry. Right? But because it's my nature and it's the way I've been brought up, and And really, I know how it impacts somebody when you've done them wrong and you truly do apologize for it. Oh my goodness, what a lesson for me today. Right? I apologized to one of my customers because I felt I had overstepped my boundaries when it came to that customer. Right? I did. I felt that way. And when I feel guilt and shame, I know the difference between guilt and shame. And guilt feels like you're guilty, and shame feels like, oh, you're shameful. That's right, right. So I don't think shame I would pay any attention to, but guilt, when I feel that guilt, I pay attention to it. And I feel that I could have done better at putting myself in somebody else's shoes. But that's customer service. And that's what happens when you put yourself out there. And if I want to say, hey, right, I'm Cindy, I'm here, right, I mattered, then I have to be able to take that. And I think a lot of the lessons that I take are to build up that resilience that has always been there, but still can be triggered at times. And I didn't mean to go back there, but I did, right? But in using it as an example, right? Because it means when you apologize to somebody and you really mean it, they really feel it, right? And wounds can be healed. And I can tell you, I have made best friends out of people who did not treat me well because they apologized, right? Because they saw that they did wrong. It's not to say they wouldn't do it again, but they recognized when they did something wrong, right? And they apologized. My dad used to say, no use saying sorry unless you know what you're sorry for. So we always had to delve deep to figure out what we were sorry for. Usually it was like a guessing game with endless amount of choices, right? And then again, the guilt and shame when it took you too long to figure out what it was. Huh? But we're all different. We're all brought up differently than that. And we're all triggered by different things, right? Okay. See, and that's the way I look at it, right? Another couple of years, I could be retired. I'd like to be keep going. My brand is going to keep going, but right, the way it's going now, it's not going to put a roof over my head, right? So again, I have to put that roof over my head. So I'm grateful for that job that puts the roof over my head, right? So I should be on my toes and I should be able to take a lesson if I need that lesson myself. And I got a lesson today. Oh my goodness. I never got yelled at like that since I was a little kid. That was it triggered me, right? I couldn't help it. When I'm triggered, you guys, I'm like I'm like a baby is what I am. I just burst into tears because I don't know how to deal with that intensity of emotion. And so usually I burst into tears, right? But I have the sense about it now to think about it and in the expressing how I feel, right? That I can make things okay, right? And sometimes, like I said, being able to apologize to somebody, right, could make a true friend. It could build alliances and loyalty. Oh my goodness, the loyalty for somebody who will stick up for you. I've had those managers in my life, and those managers, I could work with them and work for them, slave for them, serve them because it was so easy, right? Because they were willing to say sorry or they recognized what my triggers were and had the consideration to sometimes dance around the triggers and still make sure that I got the understanding and the lesson that was needed without being smacked in the face, right? And you guys got it now. It's being yelled at. You can't yell at me. It's a freaky, scary situation, right? I handle it differently than what I used to, right? I used to be all hackles and I used to be super defensive and I always felt like you were being forcing me into a corner and I didn't have anywheres to escape and then the only way to escape was to bite back, to come back, to defend myself, to over explain myself, right? I am my own person. I'd like to create my own being, right? And I think a part of that is that creating myself, being responsible for myself, making my own choices, being my own person, and holding to my own values and expecting somebody who's going to be in my hemisphere to abide by those too. I don't ask for much. I ask for the basics. I ask for what the majority would expect from the majority in how to be treated, right? So that's pretty minimal. Don't yell at me. Don't yell at me, even if I'm wrong. Please don't yell at me because it triggers me. And even if it doesn't look like on the outside that there is any phasing in that, like I'm right, that it phases me. Sometimes I just have to kind of blank out on that stuff in order to get through that moment, right? But sometimes in that blanking out, it looks like disrespect. It looks like you're not listening to the other person, that you're ignoring them or you're brushing them off. But in the moment, you're just triggered and you just need to escape from it, like even if it's just for a few seconds, just to regroup in your brain and hope that whatever or whoever comes to your rescue and you get an answer on how to work with that, right? And that's the amazing thing about what I do. So that ain't changing. Me and my sister had this conversation last week, right? It's not changing. But that way. It's still going to be there, but there's going to be times when there's going to be more the outdoors where I'm going to be on my trips. I'm going to be in Scotland or somewhere else because this year the plan is to save for the vehicle and to tour some provincial parks here in Manitoba rather than going and spending any serious length of time in Ontario. I will do, obviously, I'm going to do a couple, all the parks are beautiful. And there are a couple of parks that are only a few hours from here. They're in Ontario. So I'll have a few choices in that. But, right, this summer, I'm really going to see what I can come up with in experiences. I've done a few of the provincial parks, but to tell you the truth, I had my favorite spot, and I would just, if I needed to get away, that was the spot I was going to. And it'll probably be my first camping experience because it was a magnificent spot, and I haven't been there. Haven't been there in so long, right? I think since I started my YouTube channel, because I don't recall any of my videos being filmed. Black Lake, nope, being provincial park. It was my favorite spot in Manitoba. 3 hours away. That's why, right? People usually don't like to drive super far away because it takes away from their little short vacations, whether it's weekends or holidays from work or whatever. But it's perfect for me. I don't mind driving the extra hour and a half to get somewheres where I can feel like I have the world for myself. Yeah. Okay, let's come down. Um, yeah, like I said, if I had my life to do it over again, since an early age, I would have had the alarm go off at 7 o'clock in the morning. I really like being a day person. I think I probably would have enjoyed being a day person, right? Night person. I don't know. I guess it was the crews that I was hanging out with, right? You are what you surround yourself with, right? And all my friends were partiers. I guess I was a partier too, because I was what my friends were. Or I wanted to be what my friends were, right? Yeah, it was lots of fun. It was lots of fun. And it's the same, like I said, as much as there were crappy things, because even back then things were not going good, right and left, right? I wasn't feeling absolutely amazing about all the people in my life. But sometimes it's just, you could take on a best friend and think that person is absolutely perfect to be in your life, right? You get along, you like the same interests and everything, right? You have great talks, just the perfect friend. But that perfect friend is the issue, right? is the is the one that doesn't like you, or that one that doesn't rub you well, or that one that you don't rub well, right? And then that ruins the potential of that relationship that you just absolutely adore. And also on top of that, that relationship that you absolutely adore might think that, oh my goodness, right? They don't like me because they never want to hang out with me and stuff. And it's just that, right? You are what you surround yourself with. And as much as I loved, right? I am not judgmental that way, right? I treat people how they treat me. Right? Because everybody has an enemy. Everybody has somebody who pinches them or treats them not nicely. And even us looking at other relationships outside of our own, we can see and you go, oh my goodness, I wish Jane treated her husband a little bit differently, right? A little bit better, right? Or you think, oh my goodness, I wish Joe would tell his wife how great her food is a little bit more. You know how much that would make her feel, how good that would make her feel if he came home from work and said, oh my goodness, you're the best wife ever to make sure that my dinner is on the table at 5 o'clock every night. I so appreciate you. You're the best, 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 right? That doesn't happen in the real world, right? It's just like that apology. It doesn't happen. Right? Maybe it does in the real world. Maybe I never really lived in the real world in my unique, dynamic family that I come from. Right? But that makes my entire family unique and dynamic, and them no different than me, just different lessons, just different parts from different parents. Right? We all get to pick and choose. And not only do we get to pick and choose, our parents do too, right? My mother loved my sister Tracy. Oh my goodness, right? Tracy was the golden child. She could never go wrong. Tracy constantly driving me crazy. Cindy did it. No, I would be in big trouble. I was very much my father's daughter, but in a very codependent way, right? Because he was my safety zone, right? Right? I come from very dynamic family, and the relationship I had with my father was not the relationship that I had with my mother, and right, and then there's my other sisters, all very dynamic in their own upbringing too, and each one of us picked different parts. We admired different parts of each one of our parents, right? I used to admire my mother, how she could whip a meal out of nothing, right? You give her a 20-pound bag of rice, and it would be like gourmet dinner every night, almost a different meal out of that bag of rice. She was super creative that way, right? And out of necessity, it served us very well. We were never hungry, and that's one thing that I can say. There was always a roof over our head. And even though I had a bad relationship with food and that guilt and shame, right? I always tried in that, right? Because I just always thought it was my fault because I was always so hungry that I was taking more than my fair share. Because, again, that upbringing that maybe my sisters didn't need to take on. It was that little bit of fear based because there was a lot of obesity in our family going back. I had two uncles over 500. One of them was 600, and my grandmother was over 500 pounds on the other side of the family, right? So on my mother's side, two big brothers that she had, and on my dad's side, he had his mother who was very overweight, and neither of my parents were overweight. None of their siblings were overweight, right? But it happens, right? And in that fear-based upbringing, kind of got a wonky kind of relationship with food, and that's the truth. And if that's what saved me, right? I have to honor that, but at the same time, right? I know it's a wonky way of being, it's a wonky way of living. It's not the norm, it's not the majority. And so the guilt and shame and the dieting and the right and looking for solutions, but each one of my sisters has the same thing, just a little bit different, right? Because I was used as that example for them. And so now they have tendencies as they worry about their weight, right? Or they used to anyway. Everybody's getting a lot better. Age does that for you. It does, right? Some things just don't seem so important anymore, right? Yeah. But you got to make sure that's just not the mood you're in, right? That you're actually thinking about it realistically and making good choices for yourself because it's your own well-being. And when you make those decisions to step outside of yourself, lots of people do. It's not right. Lots of people. I learned these lessons somewheres along the line, and it wasn't just all my experiences. Even though the experiences were my baseline, the experiences were the witness to what I believe was meant to be witnessed in what wasn't going right. It needed to be known, it needed to be exposed because our own human evolution is dependent on that, right? And those other parts of us, right? They're dependent on the human too, right? So it's our responsibility as far as I'm concerned, right? Just to do the best that we can. And sometimes that means apologizing, right? And it means a lot. If you can think that much, it means a lot. I know it means everything to me, and lots of chances have come out of those I'm sorry's and some best friends. My best friend, Beverly Edwards. I was 12 years old. Oh my goodness. I was getting beaten up at school. I was being called names. I had the nickname secondhander as a nickname at school. Just a right, but as a sensitive and small child, getting it at home and getting it at school was very traumatizing for me. But also being stubborn and pig-heading and not being that person to turn the other cheek. When these kids picked on me, I wasn't going to take it. I did my very best to stand my ground, right? If I could avoid it, I would without a scene, right? And sometimes you could raise a voice and go, oh my goodness, she's got personality. Okay, we'll call this one for another day. Sometimes I did that in the bluffs, right? But Beverly Edwards followed me home from school. Well, she didn't follow me. She was walking home behind me and I was walking ahead, and I was surrounded by a whole bunch of my schoolmates, right? We weren't friends or anything. Probably didn't even know their names, but they enjoyed what they were doing and they came at me. And yeah, all four or five of them jumped me and they were beating the poop out of me. And this woman, Beverly Edwards, I'll never forget her, big black Amazon lady. But she was 12 years old too, but she was like an adult. She was huge, right? She came up behind and she beat all of those kids off of me, picked me up, brushed me off, punched me in the arm like she did every time she saw me. She'd give me a good punch, but I didn't recognize, right? And this is the thing. You could go, ow, right? But sometimes those punches are like, hey, right? That's what those punches mean. And I think that's what she was doing, because even though she protected me that day, she didn't have to do that. She had her own troubles. She was unique and different in her own way. Like I said, she was a big black Amazon lady at 12 years old. She was tall, she was broad, and she was mean. And she was black, black, black. She was like one of those where the skin is so black it's blue, right? And she was my best friend. And I remember even when we moved, because we moved all the time, even when we moved, when we got back to Vancouver, I'd always find out where she lived and we'd always pick up where we left off, right? I wish I knew where she was. And the funny thing is, the last time I saw her, I think she might have been about 18 years old, right? And the first time, 12 years old, was we knew each other for a long time. I must have been 18, 17 or 18 years old, 17 probably, because I wasn't out of home yet, right? And I was still in Vancouver, and I went to see her, and she was 17 too. And she had two kids already, right? She had two kids already, and she led a totally different life that I did, but I loved her anyway, and I loved her whole family actually, right? Yeah. Yeah. Her mom made good rice, bean rice with all kinds of refried beans and kidney beans and all kinds of seeds and stuff in it. It was so good though. It didn't taste like fried rice or anything. It tasted more like Spanish rice. But oh my goodness, her mom made delicious rice. That's one thing I can remember about her mom. Besides that, her mom was super kind to me. That her mom was so nice. And Beverly Edwards, who used to punch me at least twice a day in school when I was walking down the aisle, but I was so scared of her because she was right. She was big and she was mean, and she was right. She was meaner than those other girls were. But the day that those girls jumped me and she jumped right back, the next day, me and her were best friends. We were best friends for years and years. And she was amazing. She was an amazing lady. And you would misjudge her and think that she was not so nice, but she was, right? She was my best friend. And it wasn't because I got used to her, it was in that loyalty, it was in that kindness that she didn't have to do for me, right? Right? I made I made a best friend out of an enemy. And maybe she was never an enemy, right? Maybe she was looking for a reason to have a conversation with me or to make friends with me, and punching me in the arm was the only way that she knew. And she never punched me in the head or anything. It's just like she'd give me a good slug in the upper arm every time she passed me in the hallway. She'd just come right at me, right? I go stand on the other side of the hallway, which were probably 12 feet wide, right? Stand on the other side of the hallway, and she'd still come over and, right? I'm just like up against the lockers, just waiting for the punch, and I'd wait for her. And she always just walked away, never said anything. She'd just walk away. Yeah, she was amazing. Okay, let's come into these comments, you guys. Oh my goodness. I think we're done for tonight. I'm just babbling away. You guys are just sitting there listening to me babbling away. It's so amazing. Thank you so much, you guys, for coming in and hanging out with me on my lives, even on the lives, right? I feel amazing, and I didn't take any energy. I just kept plowing through. I feel really good now. I'm gonna have something to eat because that's what I do. I'm gonna have something to eat, make myself another cup of coffee, because you see, it's absolutely full. Right into my lap, but that was okay. The clothes were going into the laundry anyway. But I'm gonna make myself a cup of coffee, and I'm gonna make myself something to eat. I'll be coming back tomorrow, sometime probably before I go to work, and if you want to come and hang out with me, Hannah, if you want to come out and hang out with me, I will make a point of keeping an eye out for you and say hi right back to you. And then if you're not, I'll see you guys next Sunday. And Andrew, I'll get that parcel out this week. I'll let you know. I'm sure they'll give me a tracking number, and I'll give you the tracking number, and you'll be able to track. Okay, you guys, that'll be it tonight. Thank you, Owen. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, William and Hannah. And oh my goodness, who am I missing tonight? I know William was in here. I mentioned him already. You guys, have an amazing night, and we'll see you next week if we don't see you tomorrow.